And then we will start the screen share. Okay. Well, hi and welcome to this webinar. This is Solar Battery Secrets. Do you guys remember how surprised or annoyed or gosh, that isn't where I want to go to yet. Here we go. remember how surprised or annoyed or enraged you were when you didn't have power, when the grid shut down? And after you got your solar array installed, I bet you thought you were going to have power then. Well, I hope you didn't, because you don't have power then. It has been, and it still is, cheaper to use the grid as a virtual battery, though now there are reasons to consider a local storage battery solution. And the reason I created this webinar, because, well, quite frankly, it didn't exist yet. I personally was looking for information about battery systems to educate and provide solutions for myself and my customers. And I spent countless hours combining the internet, watching YouTube videos, taking online courses, reading countless Wikipedia and other trustworthy sources to learn about this topic. So now you're going to get the benefit of all that hard work. So we're almost ready to get started, but a few notes before we do get going. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to use the term solar battery to mean on-site energy storage for your home. As I said, I'm also inviting you to post your questions in the chat, and we'll have time to answer these in the end. And for those of you who just arrived, could you keep your microphones muted during the presentation? And turning off your video is going to improve your internet connection. And by shutting down any other applications, that will also improve your internet connection. So here we go. So first, let's find out why you're here watching this presentation so I can better focus my information. I have 3 points here. Which one of these 3 applies to you? And you can put your answers in the chat. The first one is, I already have solar and I want a battery. I don't yet have solar and I want a battery when I do. Or number 3, I don't want a battery and I am here to learn. So just post your answers in the chat. And okay, great. Great. I got to close my window here. Okay, that's better. Okay, thank you. That gives me a better idea of who's here. We've got a combination of people that are here. Just give you a few more seconds to put your answer in the chat. And we have people who have solar already. We have people who don't have solar already. We have people that are here just for education. So that's fantastic. Really welcome to everybody that's here. And just making sure that everybody's in the room. Okay. Okay. So let's get started. So why batteries now? Why batteries now? Investors have finally started to put their money into solar batteries. This trend is due to the success of the Tesla car and other electric vehicles. And probably more importantly, it's really the desperation of utilities to crumble electricity generation infrastructure, as well as their urgent need to find some way to store all of the solar that's being produced during the day for evening use. This investment has sent solar battery costs absolutely plummeting, about 87% over the last 10 years and 50% in the last 3 years at all. California utility companies have also been resorting to public safety power shutdowns, and those of you in Lake County know what I mean, during high wind and weather events to reduce the chances of a broken power line causing a catastrophic fire like this one that's pictured in Lake County, California, not too far from my home. The California Self-Generation Incentive Program, or SGIP for short, helps homeowners in high fire threat areas like this one get solar batteries for their solar systems, so they are not without electricity during these shutdowns. This incentive program is actually quite generous. It could possibly offset almost the entire cost of your solar battery. And finally, people are finding generators are just not good enough. They require fuel, they're noisy, they stink, and the cost is now pretty much on par with a solar battery. So who am I and why am I qualified to talk to you today? First of all, my education and training background comes from a master's degree in curriculum design from Columbia University, and I've had years as a corporate meeting facilitator and organizational development trainer. My consultative sales and technology experience was actually developed as a sales executive with IBM UK, where I helped large clients such as the London Stock Exchange, Standard Chartered Bank, and other large financial institutions implement their IT strategy with IBM products. I started on my path into solar energy consulting in 2016 because it combined my love of technology and my teaching and training abilities to allow me to help homeowners in their journey towards going solar. It also permits me to earn a sustainable income in a business that's deeply aligned with my values, and it lets me do my part in taking a significant step towards reversing global warming. I've partnered with several leading solar companies who have a proven track record of successful installations and a strong balance sheet. Because of these relationships, I can help homeowners throughout the United States get solar and solar batteries. So, what are the solar battery secrets you need to know? Secret number one, know your big why. Why do you want a solar battery in the first place? Secret number two, size is everything when it comes to batteries, and we're going to show you how to determine the right size solar battery for your home. And secret number three, just the basics. We're just going to look at the basic essential topics and terms and definitions you need to know about solar batteries. Secret number four, you don't have to sell your firstborn in order to buy a solar battery. And in this secret, we're going to be looking at financing and costs. And finally, secret number five, we're going to put it all together to help you make the right decision for your solar battery solution. So let's start with secret number one. Know your big why. Why do you want a battery now? That's the big why. First of all, why is it so important to have an answer to this particular question? In a moment, I'll be showing you a list of 3 reasons why people have told me they want a battery. And what I'll want you to do is to pick the one that most resonates with you and write it down in the chat. The extent to which you deeply feel a yes to any of these 3 reasons will determine your commitment to actually having a solar battery. And here's what I mean. Many people say that they want a solar battery to have electricity during power outages, and this may be you too. However, when you dig deeper as to why you might want this, some people might answer, I don't want to lose the contents of my freezer. While another might say, because I would die without the use of my oxygen machine. So what do you think? Which one of these 2 people might be more motivated towards finding and paying for a solar battery solution? Okay, are you ready? Here are your answer choices. Put the number of the answer you most resonate with in the chat box. And you have 3 choices. Number 1 is to have electricity during power outages. Number 2, to protect against rising time of use charges. And number 3, to be energy independent. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Now you might want to pick all 3, and that's fine. This section is really here for you to actually ask the deeper questions. And even after this webinar is over, I invite you to really explore the answers to these questions more deeply, because wanting a battery and buying a battery are two different things. And so you really have to know why you want one in order to make that purchase now. So let's dig a bit deeper into these questions, and let's look at each one point by point. Power during outages. This is a picture of my friends Ken and Debbie. Ken was probably actually one of the first people to ever get a Tesla Powerwall. He had the Tesla Powerwall 1, and that's a picture of his Tesla Powerwall behind them. They actually live in a rural area, and they get their water from an electric water pump. So having electricity during outages is really important to them. Ken loves this Powerwall, not more than his wife Debbie though. But anyway, he tells me actually it's definitely required him when he got it to think differently about how he uses electricity. He explained to me in kind of these words, I'm going to kind of paraphrase him. He said, you can't go around mindlessly switching on lights and using electricity without paying attention to it when you're on backup power. A battery only contains a certain amount of energy, and you need to become very aware of what appliances use a lot of energy and which don't. It's very different than using electricity from the grid, where there is an endless supply of electricity available to you as long as you're willing to pay for it. Point number 2, rising TOU, or time of use rates, and looming demand charges. TOU, or time of use, is where you are charged a certain rate for the electricity you used based on the time of day you use it. Now, you might have noticed if you looked at your electricity bill recently that, that there is actually a growing gap between what your off-peak and on-peak time of use charges are. The wider this gap gets, the more solar you're going to have to produce during off-peak daytime hours to offset your on-peak early evening usage. And if you don't have solar yet and you're not on a time of use plan yet, guess what? You soon will be. In fact, I think everybody is being shifted over sometime, well, since March, actually. A battery is going to help with this gap, as you can program it to charge during the day, and you can discharge it in the more expensive late afternoons and evenings. This way, you can use your own locally stored electricity during on-peak times, rather than just paying the exorbitant utility costs for electricity on the grid. So that's another reason you can use your battery, is not only for backup, but to offset this time of use rate charges. And I do want to mention also about these looming demand charges. Residential customers are not paying demand charges yet, but these charges are coming, which means you'll be paying a fee that will be calculated based on the greatest amount of electricity you used over a 15-minute period during the month. That's called your demand. Commercial customers are conscious of this charge, which they already are now paying, which can be a substantial one, and they plan their energy usage accordingly. This may be you too very soon. And finally, let's look at energy independence. These are my friends Joyce and Russ. According to building codes here in California, if a grid connection is available for your home, you must be connected to your utility company for electricity, as those of you with solar know. So you will still need to be connected to the grid, though a solar battery will dramatically decrease your dependence on it. With all the uncertainty that we are facing in the world today, having a reliable source of electricity for extended periods of time goes a long way towards providing some energy security for you and your family. As I said, these are my friends, Joyce and Russ. Russ attended one of my in-person solar battery workshops. After he installed solar, he was looking at the possibility of installing a solar battery alongside of his gasoline generator. He liked the generator, but was concerned about the availability of fuel during extended outages. Plus, of course, it was noisy and smelly. So the solar battery was interesting to him, as he could use it as an additional backup device for his generator. And he could also use the gasoline generator to charge the solar battery should his solar system not be able to charge it enough during the winter months. This energy backup system design would cut down the cost and increase the efficiency of using the gasoline generator, as well as provide additional redundancy for his energy backup system, making him essentially pretty much energy self-reliant. By the way, the cost of his average size gasoline generator fully installed was $14,000. And that did not include his fuel costs. Some other things to consider too when you're thinking about getting a battery. Do you want your battery installed so it switches on automatically where you don't even know the power has gone out until you look out your window and you see that the neighborhood is dark? Or are you okay with going ahead and flipping a switch to manually change over to your solar battery? Or perhaps you might even be willing to just set up a solar generator inside your house with extension cords running from it every time there's a power outage. Rolling the dice on power outages, this is where you're going to have to determine your risk tolerance. And this is an important question to ask. And well, actually, there's a series of questions here. First of all, how often do you think you'll experience power outages? For how long? And can you afford emotionally, financially, or physically to be without power for this long and this often? Now, the thing is, the answer to the questions I just read off are actually pretty difficult to foresee. They'll tell you something. If you're in PG&E territory, you can bet, and also in Southern California too, you can bet that regular power shutdowns on windy days during fire season is going to be the new norm here in California. So let's move on to solar battery secret number 2. Size is everything. How much of a battery you need depends on how much electricity you use. Before we look at a few ways you can calculate this for your own home, we first need to know the difference between power and energy. Power is the maximum amount of work a device can perform. And this is measured in watts. It's abbreviated W. A 100-watt light bulb can do more work and therefore is brighter than a 10-watt bulb. Energy is work performed over a period of time. When you use a light bulb, your electricity company measures the amount of energy the light bulb uses in kilowatt hours, abbreviated kWh. Now let's see an example of this just to get a little bit more specific. If you use a 100-watt light bulb for 24 hours, how many kilowatt hours of electricity would have been used? Let's do the math. 100 watts for the light bulb times 24 hours equals 2,400 watt hours. Now, if you remember from the previous slide, the utility company measures in kilowatt hours though. So we're going to need to convert this watt hours to kilowatt hours. 1,000 watt hours equals 1 kilowatt hour. So we divide the watt hours by 1,000 to get the kilowatt hours used. So you can see we use 2.4 kilowatt hours of electricity running our 100-watt light bulb for one day. Now let's look at a few ways you can calculate how much energy you're using for your other appliances during the day. You can use a spreadsheet. This is a table from the Tesla Powerwall certification course I recently completed. It contains many of the standard appliances you might use on a daily basis in an average home. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but let me just point out a few things on this spreadsheet. It's interesting to note that there are some appliances like laptops that require relatively little power to run. You can see there only 75 watts. And Clarice, can you handle the muting?
Oh, yeah.
And
Lower Lake Fire Department, and the guy that did mine was
okay,
the
just give me 2 seconds here.
chief. Yeah, I was
Okay, there we go.
early, and
I can't get it off.
they just said go.
Okay. Okay. So coming back, you can see here in this spreadsheet, looking at the laptop, you can see it's only using 75 watts. However, since you're using it for a long period of time, you can see how much energy it's actually using over that time. Now contrast this to your coffee maker. It's a very high wattage appliance, 1500 watts, but you don't use it as much as you use your laptop. Interestingly enough, over the course of a day, you're using both of them equally, pretty much equally, about 1500 watt hours per day. Now, this 11.6 kilowatt hours, one Tesla wall can actually handle this average daily usage for a home in backup mode, at least during the summertime. And I invite you to take screenshots of these so that you can have a more close look at this. However, there's another thing which I'm also going to invite you to do. This is my email address. I will actually, as a result of you being here, I've created my own spreadsheet version of this table that has the wattage of many more appliances than this. You can put in your own numbers and let the spreadsheet do the calculating. As I said, I'll be sharing with you this and the recording to everyone who has signed up for this webinar. If you don't think I have your email address, you can leave it in the chat or you can email it to me here at carol@upstartenergy.com. Okay, so that's the spreadsheet to calculate your energy usage. Here's another way. You can actually see in real time the energy that you're using. This is a kilowatt meter. You can pick up one of these. You can either go on Amazon and buy it, or you can go to the local hardware store. What you do is you plug this into the wall and the device that you want to test into the meter in the front, into that slot. Then you turn on the appliance to find out its wattage. If you leave the appliance running for a few hours, you can see how many kilowatt hours it used during this time period. It's really fun to use. In fact, I recently used it on my own refrigerator, and the results did surprise me. I was surprised it used surprisingly less than I thought it was going to use, even though I knew what the wattage was. So I invite you to get this. Really fun to have and important. And here's another way you can calculate your usage. This is the rule of thumb method. In the Tesla Powerwall certification class, we're taught that a homeowner needs one Powerwall minimum for every 7.6 kilowatts AC. That's about 8 to 9 kilowatts DC, or about 26 to 36 panels, depending on the wattage of your panels. That's solar installed at your house. With a Tesla Powerwall, you're also limited in the amount of amps you can back up with your Powerwall. One Powerwall will handle 30 amps or less. So what you'll need to do is check your electricity panel for the amperage of the various circuits in your home, which is written as a number on each breaker switch. Hopefully you've labeled what each breaker switch is for. You'll see that central heating and cooling, if you have electric central heating and cooling, that requires more than 30 amps. So my suggestion to you is that it might be best to either get some smaller heating and cooling devices you can use during power outages instead, if you don't feel like forking out the cash for a second Powerwall. Oh, and the other thing you have to pay attention to with batteries, and it's really important you pay attention to them, you must pay attention to your surge and demand needs, which we talked about earlier. Surge actually is the amount of power a device uses when it starts up. Refrigerators use more power to start up, as electric water pumps do as well. Sometimes they can use more than twice their continuous operating power. That's kind of true with water pumps. The Powerwall actually copes with a surge of up to 7 kilowatts for 10 seconds. It then runs at 5 kilowatts for continuous power to cover your demand needs. That is the power requirements of all the devices running at the same time. What this means is you're going to have to be pretty careful about how many appliances you have using your battery at the same time, as well as how much startup power each device uses. And finally, here's another way you can determine how much electricity you are using. Just take a look at your electricity bill. This is page 1 of a PG&E bill. Other bills look fairly similar to this in that they're going to have this type of a graph somewhere on the bill. This is the daily usage consumption for this home during the current billing month, last billing month, and 1 year ago. I invite you to take a look at a summer or winter bill, the one which is larger, and see what this averages for you. Look at your biggest electricity bill, the month with the highest electricity usage in it. You're going to see in this instance, though, that the usage has been pretty consistent from last year to this year, about 16 kilowatt hours per day. This is a home that currently does not have solar installed. So remember, if you do have solar installed, some of this usage will be provided from your solar panels during the day. You're going to have to guesstimate how much of your usage actually occurs after sundown to determine the amount of energy that will be needed from your battery. And secret number 3, just the basics. Now we're going to get a little bit geeky by look at some of the basic terms you need to be familiar with. But before we do that, I'm going to have to stop the screen share for just a second because I don't think I turned on the audio. So I'm going to stop it for a second. And I'm going to end the presentation for a second. And now I'm going to start the screen share again. And I'm going to share the computer sound. Okay. So now we have now we're going to get a little bit geeky by looking at some basic terms you need to be familiar with. I have a short video next that's going to run through all of these terms fairly quickly, and then we're going to put it into practice by looking at it practically. So here we go.
How to choose the best battery for you. When you're comparing home battery options, you should look at the battery's capacity, depth of discharge, round-trip efficiency, chemistry, and warranties. First, you need to know how much power a battery can provide for your home. The capacity tells you how much energy the battery can hold, and the depth of discharge tells you how much of that energy you can actually use before you have to recharge it. Efficiency is also important when comparing your options. You want a battery with a high round-trip efficiency because that means it will lose less power every time you charge and reuse it. Battery chemistry is another important factor. Most home batteries are made from lithium-ion, but you can also get lead-acid batteries. Lithium-ion batteries are smaller and lighter than lead-acid. They also have a higher depth of discharge and a longer lifespan. However, they usually cost more than lead-acid batteries. Lastly, you should make sure the battery comes from a manufacturer that will replace it if there are any problems, so be sure to review all warranties. With these 5 factors in mind, you will be able to find the right battery for your home or business. Energy Sage. Smarter energy decisions.
So, okay, so now let's take all this theory that you just learned from this movie, and we're going to put it into action by comparing 2 lithium-ion solar battery marketplace leaders. Let's start first with capacity. The 2 batteries that we're looking at is the LG Chem Resu 10 and the Tesla Powerwall 2. For many people, you can see a larger battery is all that they're looking for. More capacity means more energy stored for later use. So you might think the Tesla Powerwall at 13.5 kilowatt hours would be the best option. But let's not be too hasty about this. The Powerwall is exceptionally large, 45 inches by 30 inches by 6 inches, as you remember from Ken and Debbie's picture that we showed earlier. This makes it slender enough to mount on a wall without being too obtrusive, but it's large enough to pack in some serious storage capacity too. quite frankly, I think it's really pretty to look at. And actually, there's some people with modern home designs that even like them mounted in their living rooms. The Powerwall might be big, but the LG Chem is actually far more energy dense. It packs in nearly 75% of the Powerwall's capacity into a battery less than half its size. So you actually get more energy storage per square foot with the LG Chem than you do with the Powerwall. Now let's look at output. Both batteries have the same continuous output of 5 kilowatts and a surge output of 7 kilowatts. What this means is that you don't have to worry when you put your kettle or iron on together, because both of these batteries should handle the sudden increase in demand for a short period of time. Now, depth of discharge. A greater depth of discharge is preferable as more energy is obtained out of each and every battery cycle. Other people actually prefer to increase a battery's lifespan by reducing the depth of discharge. So you can see here that there's really not any clear winner in this instance, as it's kind of really a matter of opinion and preference as to what you would rather have here. Let's now look at efficiency. The Powerwall has oh gosh, I wrote that wrong. It's the other way around. The Powerwall has an efficiency of 95%. Sorry about that. This 5% difference will add up over time. That's because 5% of a 13.5 kilowatt hour is 675 watt hours. And if you cycle your battery once during a day, you're going to find that you end up losing just under 2,500 kilowatt hours over a 10-year period. Next, and this is really where this is the important thing, how this connects to your photovoltaic or your solar system. Your solar panels actually produce DC electricity. The LG Chem actually takes this energy and stores it directly from the panels. The Powerwall actually stores the electricity after it has been converted to AC electricity by the inverters. It then has to reconvert this to DC before the Powerwall can store it. This somewhat cuts down on the performance. However, the thing is that you're also going to need a battery-ready inverter if you want to install an LG Chem, because you have to have a battery-ready inverter to actually put the LG Chem into your system. This could increase the cost of your system. And if you have a loan or a lease on your solar PV system, you may not even be able to make this inverter change if you want to retrofit a battery and your current inverter is not battery ready. However, the Powerwall, because it uses electricity after it has been converted to AC by the inverters, means you don't have to touch your current solar PV system at all. This makes a Powerwall battery retrofit to an existing system simpler, cheaper, and even possible. So if I were going to weigh up these two batteries together, if I was going to install it, I probably, I like using the LG Chem if you're installing for new solar. But if you do have a battery retrofit, you could use a Powerwall, but really you're looking at the Tesla Powerwall if you're doing a battery retrofit at this time. So let's look at putting a few faces with the names. This is a photo of the Tesla Powerwall installed in a garage. And this is what the LG Chem Resu 10 looks like installed. So solar battery secrets number 4. You don't have to sell your firstborn. Let's look at the money. First of all, a question for you. What's your true up? For those of you with solar, you know that your true up is that yearly payment you make after using solar combined with your grid. You either are paying the electricity company if you use more electricity from them, or they pay you a little bit if you produced more than you used. If your true up is greater than $1,200 a year, it might be worth it for you to get an additional smaller mini solar system paired with a battery to go along with your current system, which can help eliminate this true-up cost as well as get you a battery pretty cost efficiently. Otherwise, retrofitting a battery to your existing is possible to do. So what's the question? Cash or loan? Let's look at cash. And this is where you're going to get my opinion on things. Personally, I feel get your money out of a risky stock market, especially now where it's so up and down and all over the place. Get it out and put this money in your garage or in your living room where you can see it and where it's effectively printing cash for you. It's much less risky than the market. And in the first month, you might even see a return. You may have to wait several years to see from either your stocks or your IRA or your money market account. If you don't have cash, there's actually great loans that will allow you to get a battery and preserve your cash, your savings. So this is the slide that you've been waiting to see. I invite you to take a screenshot of this page so you can look at it more closely. To put this in context, do you remember we talked about Russ's story back in the beginning of this presentation? He paid $14,000 to install a gasoline generator for his home, and that didn't include fuel costs. If you want to use a loan for your battery retrofit, Sunnova is the only finance company I know that offers a loan program. And this loan program is only for grid-tied solar systems with, it's with a battery associated with an already existing solar array that's grid-tied. Each loan covers one Powerwall fully installed. The loan actually extends the warranty of the Powerwall out from 10 years to 15 years. It covers the entire term of the contract, which is a 15-year contract at 4.99%. There are no prepayment penalties on the loan, maybe similar to the solar loan you already have. And you can, though differently, you can actually re-amortize this loan payment at any time during the life of the loan. And the monthly cost of this loan, $109 per month. Now, you may have noticed on a couple of slides back when I showed you the cost slide, the SGIP rebate row on that slide. Here's what this means. The Self-Generation Incentive Program, or SGIP for short, was created in 2001 by the state of California to actually help utilities, businesses, and homeowners play their part in reducing greenhouse gases by installing a renewable energy system. In 2019, the program had a budget line added to the already existing general budget line, which you would have noticed on that cost sheet. This new budget line is called the Equity Resiliency Budget. This budget line was actually added to help provide backup electricity to vulnerable populations facing public safety power shutdowns during wildfire, because of the wildfire threats. Now, here's the thing, if you qualify for the Equity Resiliency Budget, this program could potentially cover the entire cost of your battery. So of course I hear you saying, what are the eligibility requirements? And here they are. And again, I invite you to take a screenshot when I am completed this slide so that you can look up these more completely later. First of all, you have to be living in a high fire threat district, level 2 or 3, or you've had to experience 2 public safety power shutdowns within 1 year of applying for the SGIP program. And you also have to meet one of these eligibility requirements as well. You have a medical need for electricity during outages. Say you're a diabetic and you need your refrigerator to work to keep your insulin cold, or you're on a low income solar program already, or, and this has no income requirement on this one, this final one, your home is provided with water from a well on your property that is powered by an electric water pump. So this can be a little bit confusing. You can actually learn more. And this is the completion of this slide. You can take a screenshot of that. You can learn more by visiting selfgenca.com. It is a website that actually has been produced by the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission. So like a government organization, it's almost impenetrable to get through. But there is the handbook in the documents area on this page, which is also impenetrable. But you can, I invite you to go have a look at it. It will present to you some terms, and it's a very interesting read. And it's probably worth $6,000 or $7,000 of your time to read it, because you might be saving that in your battery installation. So now if you feel all these costs and sizes are way too much for your needs, a solar generator could be another option for you. This is the Titan Point Zero. This is about the size of a small suitcase, and it weighs about 35 pounds. You can actually charge this from your AC outlets when the power is on, and you can charge it also from solar panels, and you can even charge it from your car during power outages. It has a 2 kilowatt-hour capacity, and it is expandable in 2 kilowatt-hour increments should your needs grow. It is silent and is meant to be used indoors. You can see on the front there that there are 6 AC outlets on the front where you'd plug in extension cords and run them through the house. Now, it's not very elegant or pretty, but it certainly does get the job done in an emergency. You can keep your refrigerator and freezer running during outages with this, but you'll have to manage how long you run each of these in order to have power available for other devices. So the cost, $3,000. It doesn't include the solar panels. The reason I didn't put the cost of the solar panels in this is because it can take any type of solar panel, which is really nice, because you're not hooked into buying the one sold for the Titan with the Titan if you can actually find cheaper ones elsewhere. So now let's put this all together. Where do we go from here? Carol, this all sounds great, but how do I know if this is really going to work for me in my home? Well, I've given you some basic information today, asking you about your big why for wanting a battery, how to know how big a battery you'll need, some basic information about battery technologies, and some financing ideas. If you think a battery retrofit system or a mini solar system with a battery might be something you're wanting to consider, I'm going to invite you to contact me to set an appointment for a deeper discussion. And here is my contact information. You can take a screenshot of this or write it down. And I will, in a very short moment, conclude this presentation, and I will go through the chat and answer any questions. So now I will stop the screen share, stop the presentation first, and stop the screen share, and welcome everybody back.